Well, here's what it requires to make a Christmas ornament. So I design the artwork, and I'm using this in Xtool Creative Space. So I design it and bring in the parts, and then I decide what cuts and what is getting engraved and what's getting scored. And then I position it on the artboard so that I can actually send it to the printer. The printer, you ask? Let's go have a look. All right, so this is what the printer is. And if you look, it's actually cutting into that wood right there. And this is all the engraving that you just now saw on the computer. This is probably not sounding very good, so there's a lot of noise around this. Because I have to have a fan on, I have to have an air jet blowing on that laser to keep it cool. I'm wearing safety glasses right now. As a matter of fact, they look like this. Just so I'm not looking at that blue laser even while I'm talking to you. So that's the printer, and yeah, there's a lot of scraps that come off the wood, and yes, you have to have a fire extinguisher nearby, or two, because that makes sure that you don't burst into flames when it starts cutting some of this fine detail stuff in here. So that's what the printer looks like, and then we go from there to start to, once those are printed, I'll cut the pieces out. I'll separate some of the other items that come from the item, and then we will start to assemble the actual pieces into ornaments. And the assembly looks like this. After it's done, the laser's all done cutting, I have a couple different things I have to do. Shut off the killer fan, shut off the air fan, keeps the air circulating, and you can hear the unit is humming too, so I'll kill it. And now it's quiet in here. And here's the part where I start to do the assembly, because after you laser etch all of these, the design set, and you set the cut and the depth and the distance, you literally have to start to weed these out. So some of them come out free, some of them fight a little bit. Looks like a lot of them came out. This one here is not quite all the way out, so there might be a cut differential in this wood here. And you can see that on the back, I'll show this to you. On the back here, you can see how it's got a piece that never got cut for whatever reason. So that one's going to make for a little bit of a challenge for when I go to piece it together. So I'll take that out. I'll start to pull these pieces. And again, this is one you can see where some of the cuts are in here and some are not. You try to get rid of some of the extra weeded pieces, and you have to be gentle with it because some of the pieces could snap, especially like the little tiny reindeer antlers and such. So I pull these apart and I start to take the pieces and I will stack them accordingly. So there's certain ones that have certain pieces that come out, and then other ones. Now this is kind of an interesting thing because I need both of these. I actually cut the circle, and this is what helps this dial spin. And then if you look real close, there is an outside ring on there because I cut two rings on it so that I can have one full length of a cut, the space, so it allows the other dial to spin around it. That's what this one right here is. So it gives it an actual little bit of playroom. That's why it spins around as easy as it does. And then this, of course, is the back of them. So I've got the back, and that's one full item. I don't like to waste space, so I create a little bulb every once in a while. This is just an ornament that'll hang, so I put a little hole in there and put some design in it so I can use it. But again, different ones cut differently, and I try to make sure that I have the cut line set good. So I'll go ahead and stack these all together, and I'm going to be, and that's right in the middle of the cut there. So these I'll have to do a little bit of trim up on these things. But for all intents and purposes, you get the idea of how I have to separate these before I go into assembly. And again, I want to keep all the circles and all of the backs. And this is all, it took about an hour to etch it. Now, design is different. Design takes an hour or so, and you got to keep doing some testing. But it takes about an hour to maybe an hour and a half to etch this setup as you saw it here, which is really not that bad. And since it takes about an hour to cut, to etch, the cutting itself takes a little bit longer. So the cutting, I make sure that I have 3 cuts around every item I'm cutting, just so that I don't have empty spaces in any of these. So I get all these together and see the piece that falls out. These just fall out, and some of them fall down in the grate in here, so you got to clean the grate out too, so that you don't have a fire that bursts into play here at a later time. That's not a good thing. So you want to make sure that you get rid of all this other debris. But this is just to show you what I do with these as I come through and kind of create these different pieces. So the next step is where I actually take all the different pieces and I start to assemble them together, and I create the actual item that will be the full spin around in it. And I'll be gluing these together too, so the glue makes a huge difference on these. And all of these will fit together in one path, so that you can see the numbers will be able to be seen as far as the countdown goes. And you have to have it so this is above this. So when you spin this around, it's not connecting with this, so you don't bump into it. But you want your little numbers to be spinning in there. And we'll line up everything so that it's the way it should be. And then we go through and we start to glue one piece into another piece, and then another piece on top of another piece, until we get the full item together, and then we'll have an ornament. So I'll show you the assembly next. Well, I know it's noisy in here because the laser printer is running back there, but this is just to show what it takes for us to kind of do these ornaments. So I'm trying to show the assembly of these, and there are 3 distinct layers to these with a back, and that's the assembled piece right there. But what happens is we have to have one of the backs, and then we've got to make sure that we weed all of these pieces out of here. This is going to go into here. We're going to glue that down. This is going to go on next. Then we'll have to have the window that shows the dial through there. And then the final piece will be what we do with this. We put it on here, and that will create the ornament. So just so you can see how we go about doing these, there's a couple different pieces with it. The backs, the sides, the dials. And like I said, I have to take these pieces out of here. And you got to do this gently, because if you look really close, there's some, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a lot of little tiny detail inside these. So instead of me going through and just pulling this out, I have to be very careful, because all of these little antlers and such will cause, and I apologize about the noise, but that is the laser printer in the background. So I try to make sure that I tap these through gently and don't break the antlers from the deer. Here, we're free of the deer, and I'll break that piece out, and that will be another piece that gets completed. Same here, these all have to be kind of gently approached. So this is the first steps that I do. I'll take this first piece here, which I've got right engraving on the back, so I leave that on the back. It's going to go down. That'll be the back of the ornament. And then I will take glue, and I tap it on a little bit heavy right in the middle, just in the middle. And the reason being is I want it to rise up off there just a little bit. And see, that's going to move around for a few seconds. So what I do then is I take this and position it so that it's right in line, and it'll circle, it'll center that piece. So now I've got the dial laying there, not glued. This piece is glued. And then I have to take this and put it onto here. So I do the same thing with the glue here. I give it a nice thick amount of glue right in the middle, and then I line this up, and now I know I'm kind of running the back of it. So, and I've got a few minutes to do this because the glue does dry pretty quickly. So I make sure that I get some glue on the back here, not too much because it's going to drop through this one, and you don't want it coming out on the outside of this ornament because it shows up on the bulb, I'm sorry, the ornament itself. So you just want enough to be able to hold it in place. And so I just kind of make sure I got some glue in different places. And then I'll position it right on top of the other one. There is a tiny little notch up here that shows me right where that one has to be, if you see that. And that assembles that. So this one I will set aside and allow it to start to dry. So once I've assembled them, I'll make sure that I straighten them out and I kind of line their edges while they're still wet so they have a nice smooth outside to them. And I make sure that all of the dials are lined up in here. So once they're all lined up and they're kind of starting to dry, I can always sand the outsides of these when they're done, but this really just sets them into place now. And I don't want to push down on them. If I push down, it'll flatten the glue. When it flattens the glue, the wood will grab together and the dial won't work. So I do this without any nails or anything. This is just so that there's a way that you can dial this and you can actually see the date change, so how many days there are until Christmas. So they're going to dry. We got a few more being made over here to fill some orders, and this right here will be probably another hour before I'll even pick these up, and then I'll be doing the next set of them. Side note is, if you want to, you can actually color these. Markers work well, or colored pencils work well. You can actually color, and it makes a fun craft. But I think they look good just as wood. So just the different textures of wood. Sometimes I run the grain east to west, sometimes north to south. But for the most part, this is how it will look when it's done. And then I have some ribbons that I put through, but I'll do that after they dry. And then one of the final steps is assembly. We decide if we're going to use gold or silver for the top ribbon. And then we have all the pieces that we start to get ready, and then we get ready to ship them. So that'll be the final step before they end up on somebody's tree someplace. See, just put it in the envelope, seal the envelope, and take it to the post office.